ready for the event.
JSC PAO, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Johnson PAO. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Scott. This is Mark Carreau from Aviation Week and Space Technology. I'd like to ask you, what would you like the legacy of the flight that you and Mikhail are about to wrap up? What would you like the legacy of that to be for us back on Earth?
Good to hear from you, Mark. I'd like for the legacy of this flight to be that we can decide to do hard things that'll take us further away from the Earth, and this is one of them. And I'm hopeful, and I think we'll learn a lot about longer duration space flight and how that will take us to Mars someday. So I'd like to think that this is another of many stepping stones to us landing on Mars sometime in our future.
Hey, Scott. Eric Berger with Ars Technica. Hope you're doing well. You've been up there for almost a year now. I'm wondering if you maybe could reflect a little bit on Valery Polyakov and now that you've been up there for so long, and are you ready to go another 100 days?
So, I think it's a little bit of a different experience being on this space station versus Mir. We have, better connectivity with people on the ground. I think the environment is a little bit more comfortable. And so, I really respect what he did back then, obviously. And, I could go another 100 days. I could go another year if I had to. It would just depend on what I was doing and if it made sense, although I do look forward to getting home here next week.
Hi, Scott. Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. Now you're getting ready to go home. Have you packed a specific item for yourself as a memento of a year in space? Or if not, is there something that you wish you could bring home from the space station as your souvenir?
I don't look at souvenirs that have flown in space the same that other people do, only because, I've been in space so many times. So I don't put the same sentimental value on those kind of things as other people do. And I absolutely understand why other people do, and I respect that. But the fact that I've been here, 4 times and for, well over 500 days, it doesn't have the same meaning to me. So I really don't have anything personal for myself that I've flown. I have stuff that other people have given me, and I look forward to returning those items to them when I get back.
Hey, Scott, this is Jake Reiner with KPRC Channel 2. For those of us that have never been in space, can you kind of put into words what this experience has been like for you, and how can you compare life in space to life on Earth?
It's the space station here is a magical place. It's an incredible science facility we have. It's a privilege to fly here, and it's something that I hope more people will have the opportunity to do in the future. And I think we will. It's just a matter of time. I'm not sure if you had another part to your question.
To people that have never been in space, what is it like, if you could compare it to everyday life we have here on planet Earth?
It's somewhat of a harsh environment. You never, even after, I've been here nearly a year, you don't feel perfectly normal. There's always, a lingering something you feel, or, it's just not normal. Having said that, it's not necessarily uncomfortable, but it is a harsh environment. For instance, having no running water, it's kind of like I've been in the woods camping for a year with regards to like hygiene, and, it's even more complicated here. And then the fact that everything floats makes your, daily life just more difficult.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the JSCPAO portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from KSC.
Station, this is KSCPAO. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear.
Scott, this is Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press. I'd like to know what's taken the greatest toll on you during the past year, do you think, and how might that bear on a future Mars mission?
Marcia, I think, physically I feel pretty good, and that's, very, kind of a subjective data point. Certainly when we look at the data, there might be, effects that are more significant than how I feel. But I think the hardest part is being isolated, in a physical sense from people on the ground that are important to you, and it's the personal. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it the psychological aspect, but there's certainly, a loss of connection with folks on the ground that you care for and love and want to spend time with. That I think is a challenge. Obviously, going to Mars, there are a lot of other challenges, but none of these we can't overcome.
Hi, Scott. Bill Harwood, CBS News. Just kind of following up on that, and you mentioned yesterday about you're coming to the end of a very long mission. You didn't think it'd be a problem going to Mars. If you can conquer the technical aspects of that, but when you get back and debrief, what can you think of that would make life better for a long-duration crew member on the way to Mars, for example, or even on the station that maybe you didn't have? Or are there any things that could be done in how things are carried out on the station that would make the life better on a long-duration flight for you guys?
On a trip to Mars, we're not going to have this much space, obviously. You're going to be in much tighter quarters. You're gonna live. You're gonna use the restroom. You're gonna exercise, all within, a few square meters of one another. I assume. That's probably, it's not going to be like the science fiction spaceship going to Mars. It's going to be something much more smaller. And even though our crew quarters and our privacy is pretty good, and what we have here is pretty good, I think it's going to have to be a lot better. I've spent in the CQ I'm looking at, the crew quarters here, probably almost half the time I've been here between sleeping and working on the computer, I've spent in basically a box the size of a phone booth. So making that, that private area as perfect as possible, I think it will go a long way towards, reducing fatigue, reducing stress, and, helping for a successful mission from I think the the aspect you're asking.
Hey Scott, Phil Keating, Fox News. Interviewed you and your brother back in February in Houston. It's been a big year. Biggest priority of the experiment is seeing how the effects of long-term duration in space could make more likely or less likely a trip to far destinations like Mars. So based on how you feel physically and mentally, psychologically, what makes you think this is not just a pipe dream for us to send Earthlings to Mars, but it's definitely something we can do?
When I look at this space station and what we've done here, building it by many different nations using different different standards of measurement, in some cases, different languages, putting this space station together that's over 1 million pounds, the size of a football field, while flying around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour, and then keeping it occupied for the last 15 years. I think there's nothing we can't accomplish that we don't, put our minds and our resources behind. So, after being here for so long, that's one thing I definitely realize, that, if we can dream it, we can do it if we really want to.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the KSC portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from JSCPAO.
Station, this is JSCPAO. How do you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, we're now going to take questions from the phone bridge. So phone bridge participants, please press *1 if you have a question, and then *2 to withdraw your question if it's been answered. We'll start with Jeff Brumfield from National Public Radio.
I'm wondering if you had had any noticeable specific effects on your health, and that could be either physical or psychological, like depression. And then the second part is, where's the first place you're going to go when you get back to Houston?
You know, the subjective stuff, you know, I have a little bit of, I think, you know, effect on my vision that is very consistent with what I experienced last time. From a psychological perspective, even though I really, you know, look forward to going home, it's not like I'm climbing the walls. I think even on my last flight that was 159 days, I was much more ready to come home. And I think that probably had a lot to do with the fact that my sister-in-law, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, was shot 2 months prior. So, you know, there are the things I feel, and I feel pretty good. And as far as what are the first things I'm going to do, when I get back to Houston, I'll go to the astronaut crew quarters at the Johnson Space Center for several hours of medical tests that end at about 3 in the morning. And then I'm going to go home and jump in my pool.
Okay, next we'll hear from Miriam Kramer with Mashable.com.
Hi, Scott. Thanks so much for doing this. And this question is in no way meaning to at all belittle what has been a historic and extraordinary flight. But I'm just curious, is there some part of you that is slightly disappointed that you aren't up there for a full 365 days, that you're coming back on day 340? And thanks so much.
You know, I really don't think about that kind of stuff. Yeah, you know, for me, if I, you know, launched in March and land in March, that's pretty close to a year. So, no, I'm not slightly disappointed at all. Actually, it's actually something I haven't really considered.
Next, we'll hear from Tracy Watson with USA Today. Okay, next let's try Trevor Hughes from USA Today.
Good morning, sir. You've taken a lot of very beautiful photos of the Earth over the past year. What's been your favorite memory or moment in capturing our planet?
Yeah, I have taken a lot of pictures because I've been up here for a long time. Actually, numbers-wise, I don't think I've taken, you know, that much compared to other crew members we've had up here, but I've definitely taken some good ones and some memorable ones. You know, Hurricane Patricia was pretty impressive. Some of the aurora we saw, especially in the south during the summertime. You know, the Bahamas is always an impressive sight. So. You know, I think I just got a really good picture of Mount Everest, actually, like an oblique picture, but I'm kind of trying to confirm that it's actually Everest. But I think people really enjoy looking at that, which I haven't posted yet, but I took today.
Okay, next up, Ann Ball from Voice of America.
Hello. Thank you so much for talking to us today. I was wondering, there's the recent story about Apollo 10, and when they went on the dark side of the moon, they heard strange sounds. And I'm wondering if you have heard any strange sounds or strange musics that you could not identify while you've been up there.
Not really. I mean, occasionally with the especially with the Russian comm system, with their VHF system, you'll pick up signals from the ground, so you'll hear interference that obviously originates on Earth. I mean, we can hear airport ATIS information on that VHF comm system they have. So, I suspect probably what they heard on the moon maybe was something that was interference. Even though you say it was on the opposite side of the moon, maybe there was some kind of transmission from the orbiting spacecraft down to the guys on the surface that probably originated on Earth, is my suspicion.
Just a reminder to the phone bridge participants to press *1 if you have a question and *2 to withdraw your question if it's answered. Next, we'll go to Kenneth Chang from New York Times.
Thank you. I was just wondering.
Go ahead, Kenneth. Okay, maybe we've lost him. We'll try instead Jeremy Settle from News 12.
12, New Jersey. I just want to say you're making the people of New Jersey very proud to call you one of our own. And I just want to ask you, is there anything about your New Jersey upbringing that prepares you for life in space?
When I was a kid, I don't know if it's particular to New Jersey, but my brother and I had a certain sense of freedom that I think kids, at least, my kids don't have with regards to what they're allowed to do and where they're allowed to, venture when you're at a very young age. And, it's unfortunate that it's not that way, but, we lived a pretty exciting and adventurous life very early on that, I don't know if it's because of New Jersey or just because of the times that I think, probably contributed to my brother and I having a pretty adventurous spirit.
Okay, next question will be from Charles Atkinson with Examiner.com.
Thank you, Charles Atkinson, Examiner. Commander Kelly, will you stay on at NASA for Project Orion? And how do you plan to contribute to America's upcoming missions away from low Earth orbit in conjunction with your medical checks?
I will always try to stay involved in the space program in, any capacity that will be allowed. It's, been my life the last 20 years. It's something I feel very strongly about. There are times when you transition, from one thing to another, but, this has been my life, and it's something I feel very strongly about and want to be a big part of for the rest of my life.
Next, let's hear from Jareen Eman with CNN. Okay, reminder that if your question's been answered, you can press *2 to withdraw it. If you have a question, you can press *1. Let's go instead to Jason Davis with the Planetary Society.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for taking my question. I was hoping you could describe the physical tests that you'll be going through immediately after returning to Earth, and how those tests will be applicable to trips to Mars, where an astronaut spends a lot of time in weightlessness and suddenly has to adapt to gravity without assistance. Thanks.
Yeah, so right after we get out of the Soyuz, they'll put us in the chairs that people often see sitting nearby the spacecraft. And then from there, we go into this medical tent. And once we're inside the medical tent, we'll be given a little bit of a time to adjust. But then we go through about an hour of what's called this field test that is, various different types of experiments. Some are physical, kind of like, even an obstacle course where you run around obstacles and, stand up from a sitting position and jump and stand and, looks at our, our ability to, for our physiology to adjust to those different positions. And so it's pretty extensive stuff that we do for pretty soon after we get back.
Okay, now we're going to try again with Kenneth Chang from the New York Times.
Hi, thank you. My question was, did you notice any differences on the second 6 months compared to the first 6 months, physically or psychologically?
You know, it's interesting when I look back on the time I've been here and think, you know, to the summer or even like, you know, the fall, September. It seems like it was so long ago, and but I don't know that there's been much of a difference. I've tried to take this, do this with a very deliberate methodology, deliberate pace, looking not really at the end, but what is the next milestone? You know, the next visiting vehicle that's coming, the next crew members that change out, the next major science experiments we might have going on. Like, you know, I'm looking at the microgravity science glove box here, like the rodents. You know, we did that. That was a very big milestone. So, and I think that's important. I mean, I think having those kind of milestones that break up a very long duration flight is something that is critical, and maybe something, you know, we're going to have to think a lot about when we are going to Mars, where, you know, the next milestone might be 6 months later when you're arriving on the planet, or, you know, 6 months later when you're coming home. So, but I don't look at the whole experience like the first 6 months, last 6 months. You know, I try to almost only look to the next thing. And fortunately, you know, we finished some major maintenance on our water system just yesterday, and that was one of those big things. Not a giant thing, but something that was, I considered, a milestone. And next milestone's coming home.
Okay, our next question is from Lindsay Lowe with Scholastic News.
Hi. School. What advice would you give to kids who want to travel to space someday?
So, you know, the advice I give, and if you can mute your mic, the advice I give about, you know, kids that want to travel in space, my assumption is they're talking about being a NASA astronaut. And we have certain minimum requirements, and those are generally you know, an expertise and a degree in some kind of technical field, and that's important. But what I also tell them, it's important to choose something that you like, a field that you like, assuming it's qualifying, because if you like it, you're going to do better at it. And NASA looks for people that have done, you know, a good job in their, you know, whatever field they were working in. And then also people that are pretty well-rounded, not just focused in one specific area, because up here you're really a generalist. I mean, you're everything from the medical doctor to the spacewalker to the, you know, to the plumber to the electrician to the scientist to the pilot in some cases. So it's good to be very well-rounded.
Okay, now we're going to go back to Jareen Emmem with CNN.
You made a few comments about our planet's atmosphere while you're up in space. Since spending so much time up there, has it changed your outlook on the Earth's environment and its climate?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the more I look at Earth and certain parts of Earth, the more I feel, you know, more of an environmentalist and someone that, you know, would like to do a better job at helping to protect it. There are definitely areas where, you know, the Earth is covered with pollution almost all the time. And you know, it's not good for any of us. And, you know, there are weather systems that I've seen while I was up here that were in places that were unexpected, storms, you know, bigger than, you know, we've seen in the past. So, you know, I think and this is a human effect. You can tell that is not a naturally occurring phenomena. It's not clouds you're looking at. It is just a blanket of constant pollution in certain areas. So, you know, we can fix that if we you know, put our minds to it. You know, we can do amazing things if we put our minds to it, and that's one of the things I've learned up here by living in this incredible facility for so long, is that, if we can, like I said earlier, if we can dream it, we can, we can make it so. So, I hope to do more when I get home in helping protect Earth.
One more reminder that if you have a question on the phone bridge, you can press *1, and if your question has been answered, press *2. Next question will be from Sarah Hammond with Arizona Public Media.
Good morning. You're one of the two subjects of the twin study, and from your perspective, Scott, what is the most important aspect of the study that will inform future long-duration space travel?
I wouldn't want to pick one of the studies over any of the others as far as their importance. That study is looking at a lot of important things between my brother and I and our physiology and how it changes over time in the course of the time I'm here. One part of it is kind of a new area that NASA is getting into with this study is the effects of spaceflight on a genetic level. And so that's something I'm pretty excited about, for personal reasons, but also for the research to try to have a better understanding how this microgravity environment and the radiation environment affects us genetically. There's a lot to learn, and as we've seen over the last 10 years, that discipline of science has really just taken off, so it's great to see us starting to focus on that in space as well.
Next up is Candace Dold from WBFF.
Scott, many of the headlines about you right now speak about your year in space, but 20 years down the road, what will make you the most proud about your career as an astronaut?
The thing I like most about flying in space is not, the view or, floating, the other stuff that's fun about this, riding the rocket or, coming back to Earth. The thing I like about it is doing something that I feel very, very strongly about, very passionate about, something that's very difficult. The work we do here every day is extremely hard. It takes a lot of concentration. It's complicated. And, we work hard at it, and I work hard at it. And, I'm just going to be, 20 years from now, I'll think back, and I think I'll just be proud that I had basically a 20-year or more year career here with 4 very successful space flights that, accomplished most of our mission objectives. And it wasn't easy, and I worked hard at it, and it was a success. So it's really the whole thing that I enjoy.
Next question is from Joy Malbon with Canadian Television.
Commander Kelly, you've spoken about some of the lovely pictures you've taken, and I'm wondering if the northern lights or anything over Canada impressed you.
Oh, absolutely. I got some great Northern Lights pictures over Canada. Actually, tweeted several of them, and the Northern Lights are amazing. Actually, as you may know, it's affected by the sun and our solar cycle. And while I've been up here, the Southern Lights we've had have been really incredible as well. So it's a beautiful place.
One more question from Bear Essential News for Kids.
Hello, Scott. This is Stephen Jin with Bear Essential News. And my question is, you've taken a lot of breathtaking photos from your vantage point on ISS. How much of a privilege has this been for you, and at what age did you get into photography?
Well, this is an incredible privilege to be able to work for NASA and represent my country, our country. And I feel extremely fortunate to, been given this responsibility to be able to do this. As far as photography is concerned, that's part of our job. It's something that I really just started getting into when I became an astronaut, and because we have such a great canvas with the Earth and such a a unique vantage point that it's mandatory that we capture it and share it with the public.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
And thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.